if you're getting started with crochet, no, you're not on the wrong video. You pretty much need a crochet hook and some yarn and you're good to go. But this is quilting, so we need a few more tools. So we need 5 tools to get going, and I'm going to take you through those 5 top tools. But there are some more tools than you might think, and I've got you covered with a free gift for you. So stick around to number 4 and I will tell you what that free gift and how to get your mitts on one of those. So let's get on and find out what your first essential quilting tool is. First up, you're going to need one of these, which is a cutting mat. Where have you gone? You're there. So this is an A2 size cutting mat. That means it is 600 by 430 millimeters. And no, I cannot remember that off the top of my head. It is written on the back. So we have imperial measurements one side and we have metric on the other side. That just depends on the brand, but it's quite useful to have the both. Now with your cutting mat, this is an Alpha one. This is my favorite brand, and the reason why is because it has a kind of rough texture and surface to it. That stops your fabric slipping. Secondly, when you are choosing your size, as I said, this is A2, and the reason is because when you buy your fabric, it will be folded as it comes off the bolt, and you're going to cut with that fold in place, and that folded fabric is about 22 to 23 inches, and that fits perfectly along here. So you can cut an entire strip off your fabric in this direction. Of course, if you have longer fabric, you can just turn it around and have your cutting mat that way. So cutting mats absolutely essential because they work beautifully with our next tool, which is your rotary cutter. Now, don't be confused because there are lots of sizes on offer. You really only need this size here, which is a 45mm rotary cutter. And that is talking about the size of the blade here. So it's 45mm on the diameter on your rotary cutter blade. So you can go up to bigger ones as you get more practice with quilting. You can have smaller ones depending on what you're doing. But to get started, and actually for an awful lot of your quilting life, you only need this 45mm. So that's the one I would choose. The brand I would go for would be a brand name. So I'd go for Alpha, like this one. As I said, this is my favorite brand. But there's also Fiskars and Clover. It just depends on the one that you like. I probably wouldn't go for the cheaper unbranded ones because we're dealing with a blade here and it's really sharp and you need this blade to be secure. I don't want this fixing to become loose and a bit wobbly. It's just, I go for safety first with these things. So we want our 45mm. Make sure that there is a guard in place that you either slide on, which this one, we have a little slidey button here, which we take the guards off and put it back on again. But there are other, I can't put it on back to front. There are other rotary cutters where you depress the handle as you're cutting and that releases the guard. And then as you finish cutting, you unpress, release your hand and the handle comes undone and the guard goes back in place. There's also rotary cutters. If you've got wrist or joint issues, you can get ergonomically designed rotary cutters as well. So find a rotary cutter that suits you. I have seen a lot of questions, and I do get questions from left-handed quilters wondering but this particular one style can work both ways. It doesn't matter which way round it is turned to cut, so this will work for both. But experiment, if you know other quilters, experiment with a few and see which one you like best. But you definitely need a rotary cutter, and these work in tangent with our next item, which is our ruler. Now we need these, and I've done a whole video on why you need these over just your regular old ruler that you'll have kicking around at home. But to get started with quilting, you need a 24.5 inch ruler. So that's 24.5 inches that way by 6.5 inches that way. Why do you need that size when there are all these other rulers on offer for you? You can get some of those later, but honestly, just this size will do to get started with. The reason for this size, if you remember when I was talking about the cutting mat, your fabric comes off the bolt folded in half. It is generally between 22, 24, 25 inches, somewhere around there. Can be a bit more. It just depends on the manufacturer. But you'll find that between 22 and 23 inches, which is kind of what it is on average, you can fit this ruler over that entire folded width of your fabric and cut a strip with complete ease. It fits the whole lot very easily. Ha! Did you know that? The other thing with your rulers is they have a lip all the way round, so that's where we're going to run our rotary cutter against, but you can use the short sides as well as the long sides, whatever is easier. This particular ruler is from Creative Grids. I like this because one way we have the whole numbers, and if I turn it around, we have half numbers, so it would go from 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, and so on. The other reason that I like Creative Grids is it is got non-stick anti-slippy things on the back. I have no idea what the technical name is, but you and I both know what we are talking about. You want your ruler to stay flat on your fabric. You don't want it to slip around anywhere. And this is a really non-slippy ruler. I'm not sure if that's a technical term, but it works. You don't want your ruler slipping around, so get the non-slip bits on the back. If you have bought a ruler that doesn't have those non-slip bits on the back, then you can buy anti-slip grips to stop your ruler sliding around, and you can just stick those on the back and they will be fine. But you definitely need one of these. So your cutting mat, your rotary cutter and your ruler all work in tangent to get your fabric cut beautifully, accurately. I can't speak this morning, which brings me on to what we need next. And that is fabric. Yes, you do, of course, need 100% cotton fabric. Why cotton fabric? It is because it will be easier to handle for you as a beginner. As you get more experience and more practice, then of course you can experiment with other types of fabric. But certainly for beginners, get yourself 100% cotton fabric. The two that I would avoid are, don't get the cheap fabric. You want a good quality brand of fabric. The cheaper fabrics won't handle as well. They will also shrink massively under the iron or when you put it through the wash, and you don't want your hard work to just resemble a shrunken little screwed up ball. So avoid the cheaper end. That's not saying that you shouldn't take advantage of sales, because many independent quilt shops and some of the bigger quilt shops as well will put good quality fabric on either clearance sale when they're swapping their seasonal fabrics over, or they'll have clearance on end of bolt fabric where they can't quite sell that last little bit. So it's worth having a look at the good retailers or the online independent retailers, or in person, they shop independent retailers to find the sale fabric, and that could be a good quality. You can feel when it's good quality because it's soft and it's just lovely to handle. The second one that I wouldn't use is polycotton. Polycotton is cheaper than 100% cotton. Even the good quality brands I would avoid as a beginner quilter. And the reason is because they become difficult to handle, particularly when we're trying to do the seam matching and get that crispness of a perfect matched seam. And even as an experienced quilter, I struggle to do that with a polycotton. So with 100% cotton, it's easy to wash, it's easy to iron, it's easy to stitch, it's easy to seam match, or at least it's easy to get practiced on the seam matching. So you really want to be looking at your 100% cotton. And that brings me nearly nicely on to the last one, but I've got one thing for you first. So if this has been useful, we've got one more to go, mind. If this has been useful and you'd like a free download to take you through all the equipment list, all the tools, all the bits and pieces that you need to get started as a beginner quilter, then I've got a free download for you, and all you need to do is look at the link in the description below. You'll find that, click that link open, put your name and address in, and this will be emailed directly to you. Can't say fairer than that. Right, let me get on to the very last thing that you need as a beginner quilter. And that is your 100% cotton thread. Now, I've got a little tip for this one. So when you speak to any quilt tutor at all, including me, I might add, I will say to you, you need 100% cotton thread. So this one here is from Meckler. This one here is from Göttingen. Both are very good brands. There are other good brands out there. Now, there is a reason why we choose 100% cotton thread for our quilting cotton fabric, and that is because this is cotton, the fabric that we're using is cotton, and when we stitch all our fabric together, we tend not to pre-wash quilting fabric because it all comes in small bits. And if you know, when you put anything through the wash or any cut fabric off the bolt through the wash, it'll get a bit distorted. It will take the stuff, the chemicals, don't get alarmed, it's kind of starchy chemicals that they put in to make the fabric all stitch as part of the manufacturing process. Actually, that works beautifully in our favour when we are cutting and we're trying to seam match, when we're making our quilts, however big or however small. So we tend to cut those small pieces, stitch them together, and then wash our quilt at the end in its entirety when everything's stitched together. So the reason why we have cotton thread is so that everything shrinks at the same rate. All fabric has its own natural shrinkage rate. Cotton is somewhere between 3 and 5%. Don't get alarmed, you will hardly notice, but you probably will notice if the fabric is pulling against a polyester cotton, when the polyester doesn't really shrink and your fabric does. So this is not, as I said, not something to get alarmed about. It's just something to be aware of, and that's why we choose 100% cotton thread. However, I'm going to just buck the trend a little bit on that, and I'll have all these quilt police teachers out there probably throwing me eggs in the stocks, quilting stocks, but I don't care because I'm here to look after you. If you want to get started today and you've got some fabric and you've got your stuff and you think, I just want to stitch some stuff together to see how it goes, then there's nothing to stop you using a bit of polyester thread. I promise you, just between you and me, it won't make any difference to start with. It makes more of a difference on the big quilts. But if you're starting with a small project and you're making a cushion or something like that, your polyester thread, honestly, would be fine. And that's between you and me, would be all right, I promise. So if that's all you've got kicking around, use some polyester thread. But as you move into making your bigger quilts, then you probably want to be using 100% cotton. So that's it. Those are the 5 top quilting tools that we need to get started as a beginner. But there are some more. So get that download, which has disappeared all over there. Got it. So get yourself one of these downloads, because in here I've got 14 items that you need to get started with quilting. Probably most of them you've got already. The 5 I've covered today are the 5 top ones that you need. But download this list and have a look at the others that you might need and get started with this amazing hobby. Let me know how you get on. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below. I do answer every single one of my comments and questions. So I will love you and leave you for now. Happy quilting, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.